She had always been fascinated by the sky. From the time she was little, she would watch planes streak across the horizon and feel a strange mix of awe and longing. It wasn't just about flying for her. It was about freedom, control, and pushing herself to limits most people would never dare to reach. Every time she felt the wind against her face, even standing on the ground, she imagined herself in the cockpit, navigating the clouds with a steady hand. That dream never faded, no matter how difficult the path became. Her journey to that point had been far from easy. She had grown up in a small town where girls didn't usually think about careers in aviation. People often assumed she would follow a more ordinary path, but she refused to settle for anything ordinary. She studied hard, learning everything she could about aircraft navigation and the science of flight. Every test she took, every flight simulator she trained on, she treated as a stepping stone to a future she had imagined countless times. She wanted to prove to herself and to everyone around her that she belonged in the sky. The day she finally received her assignment to work with the elite F-22 crew, she felt a mixture of excitement and nerves. This wasn't just another training exercise. It was a chance to measure herself against pilots who had already earned respect through years of experience. She knew they had reputations that intimidated even the most confident rookies, and she was only 20. In her career file, her call sign was 20D, a simple label that she had never thought much about, but which now seemed to carry more weight than she realized. When she arrived at the airbase, the hangars looked enormous. The planes gleamed under the sun, perfectly maintained, powerful and sleek. The F-22s stood like giants, ready to take on anything. The ground crew moved with precision, checking every detail of the aircraft. It was a world of discipline, speed, and exactness, and she felt a twinge of doubt. Could she really measure up? She took a deep breath, reminding herself that the doubts would not define her. She had prepared for this moment for years, and she would not let fear control her. Her first meeting with the F-22 pilots was intimidating. They were all older, experienced, and had an air of quiet confidence that made her feel small in comparison. As they introduced themselves, she noticed the subtle glances and quiet smirks that hinted at their skepticism. She was aware that they had seen many rookies before, and most of them didn't last long. A part of her wanted to apologize for being young, for being inexperienced, but she forced herself to stay composed. She had worked too hard to let anyone's opinion shake her now. The training began immediately. The exercises were intense even for someone with her level of preparation. The first few simulations were rough. She misjudged a turn, overcompensated on a maneuver, and struggled to keep pace with the experienced crew. She could feel the tension in the cockpit, the silent assessment of her abilities. Every mistake seemed magnified in her mind, but she refused to let it break her. Each error became a lesson, each misstep a chance to improve. She reminded herself that everyone started somewhere, and she had already come further than most. During a particularly challenging simulation, she found herself in a high-speed dogfight scenario against the F-22s. The planes moved with astonishing speed, and she had to think and react faster than she ever had before. For a moment, panic threatened to take over. The experienced pilots made it look effortless, slipping through the air with a precision that seemed almost impossible. But then something inside her shifted. Instead of focusing on her mistakes, she focused on what she knew she could do. She began to anticipate their moves, to read the flow of the simulation like a puzzle. She still made minor errors, but she was no longer overwhelmed. She was learning, adapting, surviving. By the end of the first day, she was exhausted, both physically and mentally. Sweat coated her forehead, and her arms ached from gripping the controls so tightly. But as she stepped out of the cockpit, she noticed a small, approving nod from one of the older pilots. It was subtle, almost invisible to anyone else, but to her it felt like recognition. For the first time, she sensed that maybe, just maybe, they had seen a glimpse of what she was capable of. That night, as she lay in her quarters, she thought about the path that had brought her here. She remembered the long nights studying flight manuals, the endless hours at the simulator, the moments when friends or strangers doubted her abilities simply because of her age or gender. She thought about how 20D had always been just a number to her, a label in the system, but now it seemed to carry a hidden meaning. It was her identity in the air, a symbol of determination, skill, and the promise of what she could become. She also reflected on her family, who had supported her in their own quiet ways. They hadn't fully understood the technicalities of flying, but they had believed in her heart, her drive, and her dream. That support had been invisible armor she wore every day, giving her the courage to face the F-22 crew and prove herself. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges and she needed to be ready. But she also understood that this was the first real test of her abilities, and she was not going to shy away from it. The next morning, she returned to the hangar with renewed focus. She noticed small details she had missed before: the precise maintenance checks, the way the pilots moved in unison, the subtle communication signals that guided their actions. She realized that flying wasn't just about skill or reflexes. It was about awareness, timing, and understanding the machine as an extension of herself. She began to pay closer attention, absorbing everything like a sponge. Each observation became a tool she could use in the air. As the day's exercises progressed, she started to find her rhythm. She was no longer reacting blindly but making deliberate choices. When a simulated crisis occurred, she stayed calm, coordinating her actions carefully and responding with accuracy. She began to notice the shift in the F-22 crew's demeanor. They were still testing her, still pushing her limits, but there was less skepticism now. A few of the pilots exchanged quick, approving glances when she executed a maneuver correctly. It wasn't full acceptance yet, but it was the first crack in the wall of doubt she had faced since arriving. By the afternoon, she was exhausted, but satisfied. She had survived the day's challenges, learned from her mistakes, and made small gains in the eyes of the crew. Walking back to her quarters, she felt a strange mix of fatigue and exhilaration. Flying had always demanded everything from her: strength, focus, courage. But it also rewarded her in ways nothing else could. The sky had always called to her, and now she was answering that call in the most real and demanding way possible. That night, she reviewed the day's exercises in her mind, analyzing what went well and what could improve. She thought about the F-22 crew, their experience, and the respect they had earned over the years. She realized that earning their trust wouldn't be easy, but it was possible. She had seen the first signs today, and it gave her hope. 20D, she whispered to herself, feeling the call sign take on a new meaning. It was no longer just a number. It was her symbol of persistence, skill, and the determination to rise above expectations. As she drifted off to sleep, she felt a sense of anticipation. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, and new opportunities to prove herself. But she no longer felt afraid. She had taken her first steps into a world that demanded excellence, and she had met it head-on. The journey had just begun, and she was ready to rise to whatever came next with the wind at her back and the sky as her guide. The next day began with a chill in the morning air. She could see her breath as she walked toward the hangar, her mind buzzing with anticipation. The F-22 crew was already there, preparing their jets, checking instruments, and moving with the kind of precision that came only from years of experience. She felt the familiar mix of excitement and nerves. Today would not be easy, and she knew it. She had survived yesterday, but the exercises were about to get tougher. As she climbed into her jet, she took a deep breath and centered herself. She reminded herself of everything she had learned, every maneuver, every reaction. Her hands rested on the controls, feeling the cool metal beneath her fingers. The simulator had taught her a lot, but nothing compared to the real thing. The vibration of the engine, the roar of the wind, the way the plane responded to even the smallest movements. It was alive, and she was learning to become one with it. The mission began with a series of drills designed to test her agility and decision-making. She had to navigate through a simulated threat, reacting quickly to unpredictable movements from the F-22s. They were fast, clever, and relentless. Each time she thought she had an opening, they were already there, testing her every reaction. She made mistakes, overcorrecting once or twice, missing angles she had expected to hit. Frustration bubbled up, but she forced it down. She had been through worse in training. She knew panic would only make things worse. One maneuver required her to fly in tight formation with one of the F-22s. The pilot next to her was silent, watching her every move. She felt the pressure of his gaze, judging every adjustment she made. Her first attempt was shaky. She drifted slightly off course, and the pilot gave a small shake of his head. She bit back the urge to apologize and focused on the next attempt. This time she slowed her breathing, relaxed her grip, and let herself move with the plane rather than against it. The jet responded beautifully. She held formation perfectly, matching the F-22's movements almost instinctively. A small nod from the pilot told her she had done well. The exercises grew more complex as the day went on. Now they were running simulated combat scenarios where split-second decisions could mean the difference between success and failure. She had to track multiple targets, anticipate the F-22's moves, and execute precise maneuvers. Her heart raced with every decision, her mind calculating angles, speed, and timing. She made a few errors, as expected, but each time she corrected herself quickly. Slowly, she began to feel a rhythm in the chaos. During one particularly intense exercise, a sudden complication arose. The simulation threw a surprise element, a system failure on her jet. Alarms blared, lights flashed, and she had only seconds to respond. Her first instinct was to panic, but then she remembered everything she had been taught. She assessed the situation quickly, stabilized the aircraft, and executed the correct emergency procedures. The F-22 pilot next to her glanced at her, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. She had handled a critical moment with calm and precision, something even some experienced pilots struggled to do. By midday, the F-22 crew started treating her differently. They still tested her, but the way they communicated shifted. Instead of skepticism, there was cautious acknowledgement. When she executed maneuvers correctly, she received short, approving gestures. A nod, a quick thumbs up, a brief good over the radio. It was subtle, almost invisible, but to her it meant everything. She was no longer just the rookie. She was beginning to be recognized as someone who could handle herself in the air. Despite these small victories, the day was exhausting. Her muscles ached from the tension of the flight. Her mind felt like it had run a marathon. And yet there was a thrill she couldn't shake. Flying, especially under pressure, was like a puzzle she had to solve in real time. Every success, every correct decision, was a victory that made her feel alive in a way nothing else could. Even her mistakes were lessons, each one teaching her something new about the plane, the scenario, and herself. She thought about her family and friends back home. She knew they would be proud to see her here, even if they didn't fully understand what it took to be in the air with the best pilots in the force. Her journey had not been just about skill. It had been about determination, courage, and the refusal to give up when others doubted her. The call sign 20D echoed in her mind. It had always been a number, a label, but now it felt like a symbol, a reminder of how far she had come and what she was capable of achieving. The next challenge of the day involved a more advanced scenario, a simulated dogfight with multiple F-22s attacking from different angles. She had to anticipate their moves, react instantly, and maintain control under extreme pressure. At first, it was overwhelming. They moved faster than she expected, coordinated attacks that tested her attention and reflexes and pushed her to the limit. She made mistakes, taking a wrong turn or misjudging a maneuver, but she corrected herself each time. Her confidence grew with every successful reaction. Then came a moment she would never forget. One of the F-22 pilots suddenly recognized her call sign over the radio. There was a pause, a flicker of recognition in his voice. He remembered hearing about her training achievements, her reputation as someone who never gave up, someone who could handle difficult situations despite her age and experience level. In that instant, the perception of her shifted. No longer was she just 20D, a rookie number in the system. She was someone who had proven herself worthy of their attention and respect. From that moment, the exercises felt different. The F-22 crew began to engage with her more seriously, testing her abilities in new ways, but also giving her opportunities to shine. She felt a new level of confidence, a sense of belonging in a world that had once felt intimidating. She wasn't just surviving, she was learning, growing, and proving that she deserved to be there. Every maneuver she executed became sharper, more precise, more controlled. She was no longer reacting out of fear. She was acting with purpose. By late afternoon, they ran the final exercise, a complex scenario that combined everything she had learned. It involved multiple targets, emergency situations, and high-speed maneuvers all at once. Her heart pounded as she took off, her mind calculating each decision, her hands steady on the controls. The F-22s attacked, and she responded. Each move was deliberate, precise, and increasingly instinctive. She handled emergencies with calm, predicted the F-22's attacks with growing accuracy, and maneuvered her jet with confidence. The exercise ended, and for the first time, she felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The F-22 crew gathered briefly, and she noticed approving glances, nods, and even small smiles. They still maintained their professionalism, but she could see the respect in their eyes. She had earned it, not through words but through skill, determination, and the courage to push herself when the stakes were highest. The call sign 20D now felt like a badge of honor, a symbol of what she had accomplished in just 2 days of rigorous training. Walking back to her quarters, she reflected on the day. She thought about how far she had come, how much she had learned, and how much further she still had to go. She understood that this was only the beginning. The challenges ahead would be even more demanding, but she also knew she had the ability to meet them. Confidence had replaced doubt, determination had replaced fear, and the recognition from the F-22 crew gave her a sense of belonging she had never felt before. That night, she went over the exercises in her mind, analyzing her performance, noting what worked, what didn't, and how she could improve. She thought about the F-22 crew, their skill, their precision, and the way they pushed her to be better. She realized that their tests were not just about flying. They were about character, resilience, and the ability to perform under pressure. She felt proud of herself for rising to the challenge, for proving that she was more than just 20D. She was a pilot who could face the best and hold her own. As she finally rested, exhaustion pulling her into sleep, she felt a quiet thrill. The day had tested her in ways she had never imagined, but she had survived. She had learned, adapted, and begun to earn the respect she had worked so hard for. Her journey was far from over, but she had taken another crucial step forward. The sky was no longer just a dream. It was a place where she belonged, a place where she could prove her strength, skill, and determination every single day. The morning air was sharp and crisp, carrying the faint smell of fuel and metal from the hangar. She arrived early, as always, checking her gear and preparing herself for the day ahead. The F-22 crew was already moving with quiet purpose, their faces serious, their movements precise. Today was not going to be easy. She could feel it in the way the pilots exchanged glances, a subtle tension that told her they were about to push her even harder than before. As she climbed into her jet, the familiar thrill returned. The vibrations of the engine, the roar of the turbines, the feeling of control and responsibility, it all came rushing back. She had grown comfortable with the basics, but today would test her in ways she had never experienced. Her previous successes had built confidence, but this day would demand more than confidence. It would demand instinct, courage, and the ability to think clearly in moments when everything seemed to move too fast. The mission started with a high-intensity simulation that mimicked real combat conditions. Multiple targets, rapid changes in scenario, and unexpected threats challenged her every move. She could feel the adrenaline surging through her veins. Every instinct told her to move quickly, but she knew that speed without control could be disastrous. She focused on precision, on timing, on predicting the movements of the F-22s. The first few minutes were chaotic. She made small mistakes, misjudging angles, slightly overshooting turns, but she corrected them immediately. She was learning to anticipate rather than react. Midway through the exercise, the F-22 crew changed tactics. They began attacking from unpredictable angles, coordinating maneuvers that forced her to think 2 steps ahead. At first, she struggled. The jets were faster and more agile, and she felt the familiar sting of self-doubt creeping in. But she refused to give in. She remembered the hours of preparation, the countless simulations, and the reason she had chosen this path. She took a deep breath and reminded herself that she belonged here just as much as any of them. Then something remarkable happened. She began to see patterns in the chaos. The F-22 pilots moved in ways she could anticipate, subtle clues in their flight paths guiding her decisions. She started to act with confidence, making moves that surprised even herself. A difficult turn executed perfectly. A maneuver to evade an attack precise and calculated. A decision to shift altitude and speed that gave her an advantage in the simulation. Each success built on the last, and slowly, she began to feel a rhythm in the madness. The F-22 pilot beside her suddenly gave a quick nod. Recognition. It was fleeting, almost imperceptible, but she felt it in her chest like a small victory. For the first time, it wasn't just about completing the exercises, it was about earning trust. She had been underestimated at the start, a young rookie with little experience, but now she was proving herself in a tangible way. The call sign 20D flashed in her mind, not just as a label but as a symbol of her determination, skill, and ability to rise to the occasion. Then came the turning point of the day. In the middle of the simulation, a critical emergency was triggered. Her jet system appeared to fail, alarms blaring and warning lights flashing. In an instant, she had to make decisions that could mean success or failure. Her heart raced, but she forced herself to focus. She recalled the emergency procedures she had drilled over and over, her hands moving instinctively. She stabilized the jet, managed the system failure, and adjusted her flight path to regain control. The F-22 crew watched closely. Their previous skepticism had given way to a quiet respect. They communicated through brief, efficient signals, no longer testing her but observing her ability to handle pressure. She felt the tension of the moment, but it fueled her rather than hindered her. Each move she made was precise, deliberate, and confident. By the time the scenario ended, she had regained full control, her jet steady and responsive. A short approving nod from one of the senior pilots was all the acknowledgement she needed. She had passed a moment that many experienced pilots found challenging, and she had done it at 20, with less experience than most. After the emergency simulation, the exercises shifted to teamwork. She had to coordinate with the F-22 crew to accomplish complex objectives, including target interception, strategic maneuvers, and rapid communication under pressure. She realized that flying wasn't just about individual skill. It was about trust, timing, and understanding the team as a whole. She had to predict not only her own moves but theirs, staying synchronized in a way that required both concentration and instinct. It was during one of these coordinated exercises that she finally felt fully immersed. The chaos of multiple jets, changing scenarios, and simulated threats no longer overwhelmed her. She moved with precision, anticipating her teammates' moves, adjusting her actions seamlessly and reacting with instinctive accuracy. The F-22 crew began to rely on her contributions, signaling adjustments and trusting her decisions in real time. The rookie who had been underestimated just a day earlier was now an integral part of the operation. Then a surprising moment occurred. Over the radio, one of the F-22 pilots recognized her call sign. 20D, he said, his voice carrying a note of acknowledgement. She had heard the name before, yes, but now it felt different. It wasn't just a number. It represented her reputation, her skill, and the respect she had earned. The moment was small, almost fleeting, but it changed everything. The dynamics in the cockpit shifted subtly but powerfully. She felt accepted, not just as a participant, but as someone who could handle herself alongside the most skilled pilots. The exercises continued, growing more challenging with every passing hour. The F-22 crew tested her limits, throwing increasingly difficult scenarios her way. They observed closely, making minor adjustments to challenge her problem-solving skills and reaction time. She felt the strain physically and mentally. Her arms ached, her eyes burned from focusing, her mind raced with calculations and decisions. Yet even in the midst of exhaustion, she felt exhilarated. Every challenge was a chance to prove herself, and she embraced it with determination. During one particularly intense sequence, she faced a split-second decision that would determine the outcome of the simulation. Two F-22s approached from opposite directions, each maneuvering in a way that could trap her. She assessed her options in a heartbeat, calculated the angles, and executed a precise maneuver that allowed her to evade both. It worked perfectly. The pilot next to her barely blinked, but she caught the subtle approval in his movement. It was a small moment, but it felt monumental. She had not only survived a dangerous scenario, but had done so with skill and clarity. By the end of the day, the transformation in the crew's perception was clear. They still maintained professional distance, but their skepticism had faded. When she executed maneuvers successfully, she received small gestures of acknowledgement, a nod, a brief "good job," or a slight smile. It was nothing dramatic, but it was real. She felt that she was no longer just the young rookie trying to survive. She was a capable pilot who could contribute meaningfully to the team. The journey from doubt to recognition was beginning to take shape. Walking back to her quarters, she felt a mixture of exhaustion and pride. The day had tested her in ways she had never imagined, pushing her limits both physically and mentally. Yet it had also shown her what she was capable of achieving. Every challenge she faced had strengthened her resolve, sharpened her skills, and deepened her understanding of what it meant to fly at this level. She felt a new sense of confidence tempered with humility, knowing that the path ahead would be even more demanding. That evening, she reflected on the day's lessons. She thought about the F-22 crew, their precision, skill, and the way they had begun to acknowledge her abilities. She realized that respect was not given. It was earned through consistency, courage, and determination. She had taken another step forward, transforming from a rookie pilot with doubts into someone who could stand alongside the best and hold her own. Her thoughts drifted to the call sign, 20D. Once a simple label, it now felt like a symbol of her journey, a marker of her perseverance and growing skill. It was a reminder that she had the ability to rise above expectations, to meet challenges head-on, and to earn the respect of even the most experienced pilots. She felt a quiet pride in what she had accomplished and a renewed determination to continue pushing herself further. As she prepared for sleep, exhaustion finally overcame her. The day had been long, demanding, and full of lessons. Yet there was also a sense of achievement that made every challenge worth it. She understood that her journey was far from over. Tomorrow would bring new exercises, new pressures, and new opportunities to prove herself. But she also knew that she had grown stronger, more capable, and more confident than she had been just 24 hours ago. She closed her eyes, imagining the sky stretching endlessly above her. The feeling of the wind against her face, the hum of the engine beneath her, and the sense of freedom and control. These were the moments that defined her. They reminded her why she had chosen this path, why she had worked so hard, and why she would continue to push herself no matter the challenges ahead. She was no longer just a rookie with a number. She was a pilot, learning, growing, and beginning to earn the respect she had dreamed of. The morning sun was just beginning to touch the edges of the hangar, casting long shadows across the polished floors. She arrived early as always, her mind already running through the exercises ahead. The past days had been challenging, but today felt different. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, almost as if the F-22 crew had prepared something to truly test her. She could see it in their eyes, a sharper focus, a quiet intensity that told her this would not be an ordinary day. She climbed into her jet, the familiar hum of the engine welcoming her. She had learned to read the machine, to anticipate its responses, and to feel connected to it as an extension of herself. Today, that connection would be tested like never before. The first exercises of the morning were demanding, pushing her to react quickly and think faster. She had grown accustomed to handling high-pressure situations, but these scenarios were designed to see how she would perform when things went wrong in unexpected ways. The F-22 pilots approached her with a subtle change in demeanor. They were no longer just observers. They were collaborators, testing her skill but also relying on her to respond correctly. She noticed small gestures of acknowledgement, a brief nod here, a slight smile there that told her she was being taken seriously. For the first time, she felt like she was part of the team, rather than just a rookie trying to survive. It was a small shift, but it meant everything. The first major exercise involved a simulated emergency that required immediate problem-solving under extreme pressure. A sudden warning light flashed, indicating a critical system failure in her jet. The simulation demanded an instant response, and her mind raced. Her training kicked in automatically. She stabilized the jet, executed the emergency procedures she had practiced countless times, and adjusted her flight path to maintain control. Every decision was precise, every movement deliberate. The F-22 pilot beside her watched closely, and she could see a flicker of respect in his eyes. After successfully managing the emergency, the exercises shifted to coordinated maneuvers with the F-22 crew. She had to anticipate their actions, move in synchronization, and maintain control under rapidly changing conditions. The scenario was complex, with multiple variables to consider, and mistakes could cost the success of the mission. She focused intensely, relying on instinct and training. Her movements were smooth, precise, and increasingly confident. She was no longer reacting in fear. She was acting with strategy and purpose. During a particularly challenging sequence, the F-22 pilots began testing her in ways she had not anticipated. They created a scenario where she was surrounded, multiple jets converging from different directions. Her first instinct was to panic, but she forced herself to stay calm. She assessed the situation quickly, calculated the angles, and executed a maneuver that allowed her to escape the simulated threat. It worked perfectly. The pilot beside her gave a small nod of approval, a signal that she had handled the situation flawlessly. In that moment, she felt a surge of confidence unlike anything she had experienced before. As the exercises continued, The crew began to communicate with her more openly, sharing brief instructions, observations, and subtle advice. She realized that they were no longer testing her simply to see if she could survive. They were challenging her to perform at her best, to think independently, and to take initiative. She responded with precision and skill, executing complex maneuvers that required both technical ability and split-second decision-making. Each success reinforced her growing confidence, and she felt the respect of the F-22 crew more clearly than ever. Then came a moment that changed everything. During a high-speed scenario, one of the F-22 pilots over the radio recognized her call sign. 20D, he said, his voice carrying acknowledgement and a hint of admiration. The words were simple, but their impact was profound. Her call sign, once just a number in the system, had become a symbol of her journey, her skill, and her determination. It was a recognition of everything she had accomplished in such a short time, and it shifted the dynamics in the cockpit completely. She was no longer just a rookie. She was someone whose abilities were trusted and respected. The rest of the day was filled with increasingly difficult exercises. The F-22 crew continued to test her, but there was a noticeable difference. They relied on her to make decisions, trusted her judgment, and included her in complex strategies. She felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before, a feeling that she was part of something larger than herself. Each maneuver she executed was a testament to her growth, skill, and determination. During one intense exercise, she faced a split-second decision that would determine the outcome of the scenario. Two F-22s converged on her position from opposite directions, leaving her with only moments to react. She assessed her options quickly, calculated the angles, and executed a precise maneuver that allowed her to evade both threats. The pilot beside her gave a subtle but clear nod of approval. She had not only survived the challenge, but had done so with skill and clarity that impressed even the most experienced pilots. By late afternoon, the exercises began to wind down, but the sense of accomplishment lingered. The F-22 crew gathered briefly, exchanging quick remarks and subtle gestures of acknowledgement. She noticed the respect in their eyes, a recognition that she had proven herself capable of handling high-pressure situations with skill and composure. It was a validation of all her hard work, all the preparation, and all the moments of doubt she had overcome. Walking back to her quarters, she felt a deep sense of pride and satisfaction. The day had tested her in ways she had never imagined, pushing her limits both physically and mentally. Yet it had also shown her what she was capable of achieving. Every challenge she faced had strengthened her resolve, sharpened her skills, and deepened her understanding of what it meant to be a pilot in the elite airspace. She felt confident yet humble, knowing that the journey was far from over and that even greater challenges lay ahead. That evening, she reflected on the day's events. She thought about the F-22 crew, their skill, their precision, and the way they had begun to acknowledge her abilities. She realized that respect was not given lightly. It was earned through persistence, skill, and courage under pressure. She had taken another significant step forward, transforming from a young, underestimated pilot into someone who could stand alongside the most experienced pilots and hold her own. Her thoughts returned to the call sign 20D. Once a simple label in a file, it had grown into a symbol of her journey. It represented the perseverance, skill, and determination that had carried her through the most difficult challenges. It reminded her that she had the ability to rise above expectations, to meet challenges head-on, and to earn the respect she had long sought. She felt proud of how far she had come and motivated to continue pushing herself even further. As night fell, she prepared for rest. Her body ached, her mind was exhausted, but there was a quiet thrill beneath the fatigue. She had proven herself capable, resilient, and determined. The day had been a turning point, showing her that she belonged not just in the cockpit but among the elite pilots she had once admired from afar. She understood that the journey ahead would continue to be challenging, but she felt ready. She lay in bed, thinking about the sky stretching endlessly above, the hum of the engines, the rush of the wind, the feeling of control and freedom. It all reminded her why she had chosen this path. Flying was more than a career. It was a calling, a test of character, skill, and determination. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction knowing that she had not only met the challenges, but had begun to earn the recognition she deserved. As sleep finally took hold, she felt a quiet sense of anticipation for the next day. The challenges would continue. The F-22 crew would keep testing her, and the scenarios would grow more complex. Yet she felt confident in her abilities, in her skill, and in the respect she had begun to earn. She had moved beyond doubt and hesitation, proving herself in ways that mattered. She had become more than 20D. She had become a pilot capable of meeting the highest standards and rising to the toughest challenges. The night was calm, but her mind was alive with possibilities. She imagined the maneuvers, the challenges, the scenarios that awaited her. She felt ready for whatever came next, confident that her perseverance, courage, and skill would carry her through. The journey had not been easy, but it had been worth every moment. She was no longer just a rookie. She was part of something greater, part of a team that now recognized her abilities and part of a story that was just beginning to unfold in the sky above.